everybody out there. Welcome to the Trouble 8385 show. So today I'm doing my NFL Fantasy Football League Week 1 recap. And tomorrow I'm going to actually do the video of Week 2, the guy I'm facing, what changes I made to my roster, and what our rosters are. Now, in Week 1, before I read the point totals and how everything broke down, it's kind of funny. When Week 1 Sunday started, last Sunday started, like every guy in a fantasy football league, not only was I paying attention to the Bears, I was paying attention to the players in my fantasy football league. And by the time Sunday ended, I had a lead against the guy I was playing against. But when it all was said and done, there were two guys left for Monday. I had Wes Welker, of course, the wide receiver for New England, and he had Tom Brady on his team, the quarterback. And Tom Brady ultimately did me in when I lost. Because the funny thing is, when you draft for the season, Week 1, beginning of season, you just don't know how guys are going to play. You're projecting a lot what they did last year or in the past, and a lot of times guys get hurt or guys just don't produce and you get burned. Luckily, most of the guys that drafted produced. One of the amazing things about this draft, the draft for this league, was I had the first round 6th pick in the draft, and nobody picked up Aaron Rodgers. And so when I got to draft, I picked up Aaron Rodgers. It's funny because actually in the first round of the draft, those first 5 spots, they didn't pick a lot of wide receivers. They didn't pick quarterbacks. They were picking things like field goal kickers. Field goal kickers, to be honest with you, are one of the easiest things to pick because almost any field goal kicker who's starting, they all average about the same amount of points. There's a couple exceptions, but most of the guys will get you a decent amount of points they'll contribute. So let me break down the points. What happened was he beat me 120.28 points to my 109.28, 11-point difference. And here's how it breaks down. Aaron Rodgers against the Saints got 30.58 fantasy points, which is really good for a quarterback. It's really good. But unfortunately, he went against Tom Brady on the other guy's team, and Tom Brady and his team had that 517-yard day and ended up with 43.98 points. It's a 13-point difference, and that 13 points end up ruining me from winning Week 1, obviously. So, wide receivers, I had Larry Fitzgerald, which gave me 6.6 points, basically. Wes Welker, who was, of course, the wide receiver that Tom Brady threw to, got 28 points, and then Hines Ward only got 6.7 points for me. And so, his wide receivers were Stevie Johnson, who had 12 points, Santonio Holmes, who did 7 points, basically, and then Plaxico Burress had 13. His wide receivers, when it was all said and done, let's see, he had 25, 26, 33 points total for his wide receivers compared to my 34, 40. So I actually made out in that category. And for my running backs, I picked Cedric Benson as my first running back because since he left Chicago to go to Cincinnati, whatever happened, he woke up. And he paid off big because he got me 18 points on Sunday. But then my second was Brandon Jacobs, who only got 2.90. So there is a position I'm going to change because my backup was McGahee, who didn't do very well. But since now, and we'll get more into this tomorrow's show about what I'm going to do Week 2, since McGahee, the starting running back for Denver, got hurt, and it looks like McGahee's going to be starter, I may put McGahee in the starting spot next week. And so on his side, he had Adrian Peterson and Frank Gore, which basically got a total of 24 points. So 4 points ahead of me on the running backs. Which, to be honest, when I faced him in mid-season, he has Adrian Peterson and Frank Gore. Those two guys are injury prone. Despite the fact they're great running backs, they're injury prone. So when I faced him later in the season, he may not have one or both those running backs. And that's the risk of drafting both those guys. Tight end, I had Kellen Winslow, who got 6.60 points for me. And then he had Jeremichael Finley, who had 5 points. And tight ends really, traditionally, you're only expecting 7 points. You're not expecting a lot out of those guys. Sure, there are some tight ends who are really talented and really good. But overall, especially the first game of the season, they really don't seem to produce a lot for you. And then field goal kicker was simple. I'm a Chicago Bear fan. Robbie Gould. People call him Gold. He just doesn't miss a field goal very often. And so he was big for me on Sunday. He got 13 points, which is really good for a field goal kicker. Unfortunately, the other guy had David Akers, who got 15 fantasy points on Sunday. He had a really big game. And so I lost that category. But the category that I glaringly lost was defense. Because when I went into Sunday, I had a choice between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots as my defense. Now, Pittsburgh traditionally has a great defense. Going into Sunday's game, there was no way I would have predicted that Pittsburgh would not have gotten a fumble, an interception, or a single sack on the Baltimore Ravens. But they did. And how many points did they produce for me on Sunday? -3. I cannot believe a team could get -3 points, but they did. Now, I had New England who only got 6. But 6 would have definitely been better than -3. And his defense wasn't necessarily stellar. He had San Diego, and they only ended up with 5 points on Sunday. So, defense burnt me, and along with Tom Brady burnt me. That's how I lost this game. Again, this guy had a very loaded roster, really good roster, and even if I had made changes to the guys I could have made to maximize it, it would have been less than a point game, but he still would have won. Sometimes you just lose to a guy who's a better team. In this case, I lost to him. If Tom Brady wouldn't have had such a great game, maybe I would have done better, but you can't do ifs in fantasy football. So next week, which will be tomorrow's week 2, I'm going against a guy who's weaker than this guy, and I will go down on rosters and changes. I did make a couple changes to my team. So that's what happened to me week 1. So how did your fantasy football teams, though? Did you do good? Did you do bad? I know anybody who picked up Peyton Manning got destroyed, because I know one guy in our league had Peyton Manning as a starting quarterback, and he wasn't paying attention and he didn't start, and he got destroyed, obviously, in our league. So guys, that's it for now. Till the next video.